Okay, so inside the filter is some sponges. So these sponges are actually not very dirty for a pond sponge. And that water in the bottom is actually not very dirty. So every now and then, I'd say at least once a year, you want to open these sponges up. And if they're not colourful and they're all black, then you want to give them a clean. And the way you give them a clean is get them out, take them off. Then you get some water from the pond, rinse them in the water from the pond, and then put them back in again. And then after a number of years, you find those sponges just look really bad and you want to replace them. But right now they look really quite new and they look really quite functional. But the other thing that I want to just alert to is that the UV sterilizer will stop good bacteria going into the filter. So anytime you turn on a new filter, I want the UV sterilizer off for about 4 weeks. Now, because this pond's pretty well established, I'm going to ask that we intermittently turn the UV off every now and then just to let good bacteria get back in the filter again to reseed the bacteria. So basically what happens is the fish produce waste and then bacteria has to grow inside this filter to break down the waste. So this little thing here is like a flow restrictor. So if your filter is getting dirty, you'll notice that little green thing will tend to pop to the top and you'll notice the water coming out of the filter will reduce. So if you notice there's less water coming out of the filter, then that's time to give the filter a clean. So once again, you can just do a little backwash clean like I did then, which is put the hose on here and turn this tap open. Then we can switch that over to backwash. We can spin this around and that just backwashes the filter. It's not giving it a proper clean, but it is just buying us time. It's very easy and very quick. And then every now and then, if we see this pop up and we notice less water coming out of the filter, that's when we want to give it a proper clean. Now, how often we give it a proper clean is completely governed by how many fish are in there. Lots of fish means more cleaning, and also what food we're feeding. If we're feeding very good food like probiotics, you'll find your filter will stay very, very clean. If you use crap quality foods, you will find your filter get dirty much faster. And when I leave today, I'm not going to turn the UV on, and I'm going to ask that in like a week or so, they can switch the UV on again. And every now and then, it's good just to turn it off again for a short time just to reseed bacteria. Just a little internal filter. Now, it's really important you unplug this before you play with it, because I've been electrocuted by heaps of these and they're totally not fun. Now, the reason why this hasn't been working is that I pulled the impeller out and it was very dirty, and it is a little bit scored, which means that little pebbles or rocks or that may have got into this filter. And so I've given it a clean out inside there. But this shaft is very scored. So because this shaft is not perfectly straight and it is scored, I'm not totally confident that we'll get this working. The impeller would just need replacing. So the pump itself definitely works, but the impeller is not working. So this brand is a very cheap brand. I can't even really read what that says. So I'm going to try and get this working now. Otherwise, we got to look at replacing the impeller. And I don't sell these. This is like a Bunnings brand. And usually the Bunnings brands, you can't even get spare parts for them. It's just go and buy another one because they're cheap. And then we could either get, if we had to, we can either get a better quality one. Otherwise, a replacement cheap one is an option. Because it's only a spare pump anyway, because it is run on a second pump too. The impeller clean. And right now it is working, so I'm happy with that. Now right now there's a little hole in the pipe that's shooting the water that way, and that's going to give beautiful surface agitation. So that's not meant to happen, but I'm very happy with that. And then over here we've got more water shooting in, and that's all going to agitate water very beautifully. So the fact that that's breaking the water is wonderful, because what I don't want is really flat water. Because if your water's flat, then you've got high surface tension and the gas can't exchange. So therefore your oxygen will be low, your redox potential will be low, and your CO2 level will be high, and then you'll get lots of algae. And that's not your friend. So the way this filter is working now is beautiful. About once a year at least, we want to clean the impeller that's inside that I just got out. And then on the face of this pump is a sponge. And that sponge, every now and then does need to be cleaned. So if you get the sponge out and it's really, really dirty, then it's good to clean it more often. And if you notice less flow coming, then you definitely need to clean it. And the way you clean the sponge is you just remove a little bit of water out of the aquarium, out of the pond into a bucket, wring the sponge out, and then just put it back on. We do not want to wash any of the filters with tap water, because in the sponge is going to grow good bacteria, and in the filter is going to grow good bacteria. So the enemy of good bacteria is chlorine, and there can be chlorine in tap water, so we do not want to sterilize our pond. Now, we also just had a little chat about evaporation. Now, water evaporates, and if you're not used to having a pond, you can be shocked how much water you need to put in. You've got to put some in every single week, otherwise it'll just go down and down. So that's a very normal and very expected thing. So we've got the tap over here, and if we're just going to fill up just a little bit at a time, there is basically no risk in doing that. But if you let it go right down and you haven't been out in the pond for a while, or you've been on holidays or whatever, and you put a lot in, then you do risk putting in chlorine. And if you're unlucky and you chlorine flush your fish, then you can definitely kill your fish. See, the fish are loving this. As soon as I've turned that pump on, all the fish have just come over straight away to have a look at what's going on. It's actually amazing how smart fish are. It's amazing how much personality they've got, and it's amazing how you get to know them. And when you talk about your fish, you do sound like you're a bit insane, because you get to know their little personalities, and you end up loving them and loving the little animals that they are. And you often have your favorites and so forth. Between a top up and a water change. Oh, you're going for a swim. He's got his goggles. Oh, he's ready for a swim? Yeah. Good boy. So a top up is when you just put a little bit of water in. If you're going to put a fair bit in at once, we really need to add a water ager. So the water ager takes the chlorine and stuff out of the water. And if we're going to do a water change, which means take some water out and then put water in, that's not a top up. And that definitely needs water ager. And then every now and then we definitely want a water sample, because we want to check GH, KH and a bunch of other things just to make sure it's okay. And one of the very, very best things you can do is add a bit of salt. So if we add up to 1 gram per litre of salt into this pond, you'll find that the fish's immune system is way better. It's something I highly, highly encourage. And you add the salt, an initial dose, and then you add it by the water you take out, not the water that you put in, because salt does not evaporate. Now, the other thing too is that you'll notice that there's a bunch of decorations in the pond. There's some ornaments and things like that. If you want them to be clean, then the best thing to do is take them out of the pond, put them in the sun for a day, flip them upside down, leave them in the sun for another day, hit them with a hose, and you'll be surprised how quickly they clean up. The pond can also be very deceptive for how many fish are in it, because once again, when the fish don't know you and then they're all hiding under the bridge, you can underestimate how many fish are in here, because there's actually, the more I look, the more fish I seem to see in here. And then the other thing too is fish have to grow. So if you go adding more and more fish, we just got to be aware that as you add more fish, then you are going to require more maintenance, and every single aquarium or pond is going to have a capacity. So what we don't want to do is end up slowly putting too many fish in, and then as the fish grow, we don't want to get near what's called biological capacity. And biological capacity means that the ecosystem can't handle that many fish, then some have to die. If you add too many fish, Mother Nature will not allow that, and some have to die. That's the way it goes. So if we just keep the fish understocked and we don't put too many in, then we don't have that worry. As the fish grow and get bigger, they produce more waste, and therefore if we get to the point that it is overpopulated, then losing the odd fish is something we have to expect. There's also a few little guppy type fish in here as well, which all look good.